this evening we shall discuss about overcoming three kinds of papancha during the practice of Vipassana meditations. Papancha is translated as obstacles to the progress of spiritual trainings. It is also translated as obsessions. There are three kinds of obsessions or papancha: craving, conceits, and wrong views. So Vipassana meditators have to overcome three kinds of obsessions or obstacles to progress in order to attain higher stages of experience or insight knowledge. So one of the three kinds of papancha is wrong views or DT, wrong view of a self. In other words, having a notion that there's a permanent self, and DT is the immediate cause of other mental defilements and unwholesome deeds. So this DT is arising due to a cause, or due to a condition. It is also conditioned by something. So here is conditioned by ignorance or avidya. So in order to remove wrong view or false view, one has to develop deeper and deeper concentration, or in other words, to develop moment to moment concentration. So, as you know, there are 7 stages of purification. The first is purification of moral conduct. The second is purification of mind. The third is purification of will. And the fourth is purification by overcoming doubts. The fifth is purification by knowledge and vision of what is the path and what is not path. Number 6 is purification by knowledge and visions of the course of the practice. And number 7 is purifications of knowledge and visions. The second purification, or purification of mind, is about purifying the mind, be free from mental hindrances and defilements during meditations. So in the practice of concentration meditation, meditators have to attain at least access concentration or neighborhood concentration. The concentration before the first stage of absorptions is known as purification of mind. So concentration meditators also purify the mind, free from mental hindrances and mental defilements when they attain first stage of absorption, concentration, and onwards. But Vipassana meditators have to attain momentary concentration in order to attain purification of mind. So when meditators aspire to attain purification of mind, then they need to put forth effort to develop mindfulness constantly and continuously. And when the mind is free from mental hindrances and mental defilements, then they would attain purification of mind. So this momentary concentration is defined as momentary unification of mind with the phenomenon or with an object. If the momentary unification of mind is not interrupted or disrupted by mental hindrances or defilements, then that concentration is strong enough to give rise to insight knowledge or the next purifications and onwards. But those who practice concentration meditation will not be able to attain the purifications onwards unless they switch over to the practice of mindfulness meditation, Vipassana meditation. So when mindfulness meditators or Vipassana meditators have attained deep concentration, then they come to realize clearly the specific characteristics or the individual characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena. For example, meditators could perceive clearly at each movement there's a process of movements such as rising movements or process of falling movements during a sitting meditation. So they perceive or realize there's a process of movements and there's a process of mindfulness. They see clearly movements is a process of physical and mindfulness or noting mind is a mental process. So these movements, which is one of the physical phenomena, doesn't have the characteristics of knowing or cognizing. But the process of mindfulness or the noting mind is one of the mental states or mental processes which has the characteristics of knowing or cognizing the object or the phenomenon. Sometimes meditators could realize that the mindfulness or the awareness is going towards the object. So when meditators keep on practicing, they come to realize the arising of mindfulness. For example, during sitting meditation, is dependent on the physical process, such as the rising movements or the falling movements, or the mindfulness is arising dependent on other physical phenomena, such as phenomena of hot or painful sensation, and so on. And during the practice of walking, meditation, as well as mindfulness daily activities, meditators could perceive various processor movements clearly, and the process movements is preceded by an intending mind. But if the mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough, then it's difficult to realize that the process movements is preceded by intending mind. So when meditators keep on practicing, then they only begin to realize the three common characteristics of mental physical phenomena. In those are anicca, or impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactory or suffering, or anatta, no self. So when meditators could realize that at each movement, at each moment, or at each second, there's a pair of processes. One process is the object. The object could be a physical object, such as movements, or hot or cold, hardness, softness. And the other is a process of the mentality. In other words, the mindfulness or awareness of the noting mind. So at this time, there is no more perceptions of a self. There is no more perception of self. For example, a perception of an I. I'm observing or mindful of the rising movements. It's because when the mindfulness and concentration are attentive and precise, there's only realizations of a pair of processes. At the beginning of the experience, most likely meditators will be realizing there's a process of physicality, then there's a process of a mentality, which is the noting mind, or the awareness. Sometimes meditators could realize the arising of a mental object for the thinking, then there's arising of awareness or noting mind instantly, and both processes are subject to instant passing away. So only meditators could see clearly that there's no self or being besides a pair of processes, a mental process and a physical process. Then that perceptions of a self is removed at that moment. But when the mindfulness and strong and concentration are not strong enough, or sometimes effort is getting less, the strength of mindfulness is also getting weaker, then meditators could not realize a pair of processes. In other words, they lost the experience at the time. So some meditators also need to learn to sustain the effort so that the mindfulness and concentration are stable and able to realize the experience of Vipassana meditation constantly, continuously. If meditators do not know how to sustain the effort, then mindfulness, the strength of mindfulness will be decreasing or getting weaker. Then the experience meditation also disappear. So it's important to sustain the effort. So when the perception of self is removed by their experience, and when meditators then when the meditators are mindful of any mental phenomena or physical phenomena, then the false view does not arise in him or her. So in that way the false view or the wrong views is removed at that moment. So when the false views is removed, when meditators are mindful of any phenomena, any conditioned phenomena, with that mindfulness or in other words, the consciousness from which the wrong view has been removed, then conceit does not arise in him. Conceit means pride or sometimes ego. So this wrong view, the view of self, of an I, usually give rise to this feeling of conceit or pride. So when one could mindful of any phenomenon where when the false view has been removed at that time, definitely conceit will not arise. So the conceit is removed at that time. So when one mindful of the phenomenon where the conceit has been removed, then definitely craving will not arise in him or her, or in other words, attachment is overcome. So in other words, one of the meditators overcome three kinds of papancha, or obstacles to progress, at the same moment. We do not overcome three kinds of papancha or obstacles to the progress at three different times. There's no individual methods of overcoming these three kinds of papancha. So when one could overcome one of them, definitely one could overcome the other two. It's because when one could realize the three common qualities clearly, then that three kinds of papancha are overcome at that moment. So meditators have to realize that we overcome three kinds of papancha at the same moment. So this is explained further in the commentaries, such as Visuddhimagga. So the commentary explained that if one think that there's I see clearly with my insight, then there's no removal of false view or wrong view. I see with insight, with my insight, with my insight knowledge. But if one is realizing that there's only formation, see formation with insight, comprehend, realizing the apparent processes, or discerning the mentality and physicality clearly, then there's a removal of a false view. So he said that only formations see formation with insight. Formation here means conditioned phenomena, or sankhara in Pali. So you have to realize sankhara here means mental and physical phenomena, or nama rupa. You may come across about sankhara khanda in the five aggregates, the aggregate of formation. But here the aggregate formation consists of 50 mental concomitants or cetasika. When you study the teachings of dependent origination, the second link is Sankara. But here Sankara means karma, or mental formation, verbal formations, and bodily formations. They are in fact karma done in previous life. But here, see formation with insight, comprehend, realizing or discerning mentality and physicality. So here formations refer to Namarupa, or mental and physical phenomena. So what's the meaning of only formations, see formation with insight? So when the mindfulness is not clear enough, meditators might have the idea or notion that I'm mindful of the movements of the abdomen, such as the process rising or falling. I'm observing my foot is moving during walking meditation, or I'm observing, watching my arms is bending, or I'm watching that I'm sitting down. So this idea of an eye, and there's a bodily form. So when meditators keep on practicing, putting forth effort, then they may realize that the mindfulness or the awareness is moving from one object to another object. So meditators have the idea that I'm observing my mind going towards the object. So the meditators could not realize clearly the interdependence of the mentality and physicality. This was explained in the previous talk. Or in other words, the interconditionality of the mind and bodily processes. But when meditators could develop more and more attentive and precise mindfulness, then they come to realize, for example, the movements of the rising and the movements of falling are getting clearer and clearer. So meditators have to put forth enough effort to perceive or to realize there's a process of movements. If meditators focus their attention, for example, on the abdomen, they may not be able to perceive the movement so clearly. So meditators need to put forth enough effort to realize there's a process movements. So when the movements is getting clearer and clearer, meditators might not be able to perceive the form. So there's only realization of a process of movements. So meditators follow the guideline or, or the principles of developing mindfulness correctly, rightly, they also come to realize that when there's a process movements appearing, then the mindfulness or awareness will appear or will arise instantly. But at the beginning of practice, meditators may not be able to perceive clearly the arising of a process movements. They could not perceive or realize, for example, process movements such as lifting, pushing, dropping during walking meditation. So they must not purposely exercise the control over the process movements in order to mindful and know it precisely. If meditators exercise control over the arising of any phenomena, especially the movements, they may not able to realize them as a nature process. So when meditators keep on practicing, then they come to realize that the arising of the mindfulness is dependent on the rising movements during sitting meditation. So meditators begin to realize them as a conditioned phenomena. The rising movements or the process, in other words, the process rising movements condition the arising of the process of mindfulness or the noting mind. But in meditators, did not put forth effort, then they may have the idea or the notion that I see these two processes clearly. I have this inside knowledge, realizing there's a process of rising movements, then there's a process mindfulness. So they could not see clearly that process of the mindfulness or the noting mind can become a condition for the arising of another process of awareness. So if meditators keep on practicing correctly, they come to realize that the arising of mindfulness or awareness is dependent on the object. So one is a cause, the other is an effect. If meditators could put forth enough effort, eventually they come to realize that the awareness or the mindfulness arising due to the object becomes a condition or become a cause for the arising of another process of mindfulness. So the arising of the second process of mindfulness awareness is conditioned by the arising of the first awareness that noted the object for the rising movements. So this is the meaning of only formations, see formations with insight. Actually, at that moment, the consciousness is getting clearer. So that's why it's explained in the commentaries that consciousness has the characteristics of cognizing or knowing. So there's a arising of consciousness cognizing the movements, such as rising process of movements. So this arising of consciousness is conditioned by the process of rising movements. So this is one process of formation or sankhara. Then there is no self or an I or a yogi watching or observing this process of formation. There is another process of formation. In other words, there is arising of another process of consciousness, cognizing or knowing the previous process of consciousness. So at that time, meditators could perceive the six consciousness clearly. Consciousness of seeing, consciousness of hearing, consciousness of smelling, consciousness of tasting, consciousness of touching, and mind consciousness. In other words, conscious of a mental object such as thinking image, mental image, and so on. So this conscious touching refers to the arising of internal physical phenomena, such as movements, hot, hardness. So there is only formation, see formation with insight. Then there is a removing of false view or wrong view. But meditators have the notion or idea that I see these processes with my insight. Then there is no removing of false views or wrong view. So that's why in order to make progress in Vipassana meditation, meditators have to see clearly cause and effect, or sometimes known as knowledge, realizing the knowledge of conditionality. Meditators could realize this knowledge of conditionality clearly. They come to realize that they could not exercise any form of control, any kinds of control over the arising of the phenomena or sensation. So when meditators experience tightness, tension, then they should mindful and note it as it really occurs. They should not make an effort to relax it. For example, by noting, relaxing. If meditators know the way of practice, then they would mindful and note whatever object is arising at that moment, including thinking of the experience or analyzing the practice. Sometimes meditators come to realize that I have new experience, or this object phenomenon is something new to me. So this, when there are such thoughts arising, there's no mindfulness at that moment. So it's also important to mindful of such thoughts. Even sometimes meditator was thinking, what object should I mindful? Meditators should not overlook such thoughts. What object should I be mindful? They should be mindful these thoughts. So this why mindfulness meditation is very straightforward. When meditators know there's object arising at that moment, they should mindful and know it. They know the mind's thinking, then they should mindful and know it. So that's why we always emphasize that meditators have only one duty or responsibility. That's to be mindful. Or in other words, the business of the meditators is to be mindful again. So only formation, see formation with insight or comprehends or realizing that there's a pair of processes, a process of mentality and process of physicality, or sometimes it's possible that there's a process mentality and another process mentality. The meditators will be removing this false view at that moment. So when when there's realization that formation, see formation with insight, then at that moment there's removing of conceit and attachment as well. So this papancha can arise because of the wrong view or DT. If you read sutta, scriptures, you may come across these three phrases very often. This is mine, this I am, this is myself. All this due to the notion of self or atta. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha deal with this wrong view. Most of the sutta deal with overcoming of wrong view or DT. The concept of impermanence, anicca, dukkha, suffering, something not something new to the philosophers in India during the Buddha's time. But even their understanding of impermanence, anicca, and suffering, dukkha, are not complete or thorough as long as they do not understand about dependent origination, conditionality. So when one could realize that all these conditioned phenomena are subject to arising, passing away, they are not satisfactory, no self, then one we always cling to this notion, or clinging to this notion, this is mine, or this I am, or this myself. So this notion, this is mine, is induced by this, induced by craving, and the notion this I am is induced by conceit, and the notion this myself is induced by wrong views. So as long as we are not overcoming these three kinds of papancha during the practice, then we cannot make progress to higher stages of experience or knowledge. I shall explain further in the next talk.